Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
And welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. Well, self-described Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani won the New York City Democratic mayoral primary and is leading in most polls heading to Election Day in November. So how extreme and concerning are his views? Well, joining us now to discuss is acclaimed Democratic political strategist Hank Sheinkopf. He is a veteran of political campaigns in 14 countries and 44 different states, and has done some of the biggest campaigns in America and world history. Hank, it is really great to have you here.
I'm very grateful to be on the air with you. Trust me, I'm very grateful.
How concerned and troubled are you about some of the rhetorics and actions of Zohran Mamdani?
Every American who is witnessing this, no matter where they live, should be very, very concerned. If New York falls to the Democratic Socialists, and remember, he's not a Democrat, he's a socialist. If New York falls, the rest of the country, frankly, could not be far behind.
When you say that, you're seeing a troubling trend, and that he would sort of continue this trend, but really escalate it, obviously, because we've seen some of the rhetoric from some of the so-called squad members. They seem to be the first ones to embrace him, Hank. How concerned are you that this would be part of a trend throughout the country?
I am very concerned, and every American should be. You have people who hate this country, who pronounce how much they hate this country, who are getting into positions of power. And Zohran Mamdani has never said, "I love the United States. It's been good to my family." They've been living off the goodness of the American people. Frankly, his father, his mother, and he living in Columbia University housing, tax subsidized. They're not paying really any rent. I mean, what are we talking about here? They hate America. Ilhan Omar hates America. She says it. Rashida Tlaib, she hates America. She says it. They want to destroy the United States. The others who stand with them, Presley, the congresswoman from Massachusetts. What good things have they ever said about this most extraordinary country that has given every one of them the opportunity to eat regularly, roof over their head, and get an education in some cases? I mean, I don't understand. It's hard to imagine.
It is hard to imagine. Hank, when you hear some of the rhetoric also coming from Zohran Mamdani, and you hear him not even condemn, globalize the Intifada, he gave sort of a word salad answer. What are your thoughts, and how troubling is that to you?
He's a liar, obviously. He's a con man. He's got terrific handlers around him. They know what they're doing on the internet. You know, when I think about globalizing Intifada and I think about Intifada, I think about buses being blown up in Jerusalem. I think about body parts flying through the air. I think about Americans being killed in Beirut in 1983, and the United States, unfortunately, not blowing up to Iran. I think about all these wonderful things that these terrorists have done, and they're frankly, the supporters are in the street of New York these days, demonstrating in front of the Egyptian consulate in Midtown, running through the streets, blocking traffic on the Belt Parkway this past week, getting out of their cars. But no one is saying the facts. Where are the protests about the Jews being killed? Where are the protests about the Alawites being killed? Where are the protests about the Chaldean Christians who were killed in Iraq? Where are the protests about the Zoroastrians who were murdered by the Iranian administration, and the Baha'i who were murdered by the Iranians? 600,000 people estimated, mostly women and children, disappeared as a result of chemical and bacterial agents in Syria. Where was Mamdani then? Where were his supporters then? It's extraordinary. They were nowhere.
What about also his lack of experience, too? You look at, this is a guy who's 33 years old. There were reports, I think it was in the New York Post, that he had only worked for a few years, even between 2014 and I think 2020 when he became in the Assembly. So even his professional life has been very thin. He was a rapper. I mean, is he qualified in any shape or form to be running the biggest city?
Well, that's the fascinating thing. He's not qualified for anything. The budget he's ever had to manage was $150,000, and that was the staff of the assembly. What he did with his member items, all the members of the assembly in New York get items given to them in cash, cash kind of grants. It didn't go to the largest housing development in the United States, Queensbridge houses. Didn't. What did he do with it? What's he ever done that merits that this guy should manage America's greatest city and have the capacity to turn it into America's greatest slum potentially, with ideas and plans that will make this city a place that people will leave in droves? You cut the cops, it means the streets won't be safe. You close the jails, it means we'll have more homeless and more psychotics on our streets. You enforce the co-op law, I think it's Local Law 179, with intensity. It'll mean the co-op people will frankly be out on the street in many cases. I mean, this guy doesn't understand, and the people around him have these bizarre ideas, and what they don't understand is that someone's going to have to pay the price for it, and those of us who can are going to leave. We're not going to pay for it because we don't have to. We don't have to. No one has to stay here anymore. There's no reason for it. Zoom makes New York, frankly, superfluous in some ways.
You seem almost resigned that clearly if he does win, and obviously we still don't know, we're all hoping he doesn't, but if he does win, you seem resigned that there will be a massive exodus. How quickly could that happen?
There is no question, but people will leave. Why? They're not going to pay the taxes this guy's talking about. And why should they? They're already overtaxed here. What are they here for? Look, this guy is really something. He doesn't really understand anything. People that are with him, Jamal Bowman, who's been rumored to be a school's chancellor, is a guy as a teacher who kept the cop killer Joanne Chesimard's picture on the wall of his schools, telling people that she was a hero of the black community. Cop killer, please. Wanted all these years with $1 million price on her head. Part of a gang called the Black Liberation Army that went around murdering police officers. 6 of them in New York City alone. Let's see who else we have. Brad Lander, a failed controller. Scott Stringer was a brilliant controller, although he lost the mayoral race twice now, but he's a brilliant controller. Brad Lander is a lazy dog. Well, how many audits did he have? How many significant changes did he make? How did he use his audit power? No, what he did was he made sure he could run for mayor from that office, was a crappy pension manager. New York City's returns compared to the returns of other major public pension funds are ludicrous. What did this guy do that he could be the first deputy mayor, which is the rumor? What he does know how to do is attack the state of Israel. What he did do is dump Israel securities when he was as the controller, which means that he threw out a security that is paid consistently and is done very well. But it doesn't matter, because hating Israel and hating this country and hating the Judeo-Christian ethic, which is what really is at risk here, is quite okay.
You brought up Brad Lander, too. I was seeing that the new one coming in, Mark Levine, has said he would continue. He'd go back and invest in Israel. Thank goodness. I'm happy to see that. At least there's some change in that regard. But it is shocking. I wasn't even aware until recently that Brad Lander had divested. Just like you said, even if it was an economically smart decision to continue doing it, he didn't do it.
Well, what's even most extraordinary about Brad Lander is that he's a stone-cold racist. And let me tell you why, for this great liberal. He stood up and had the gall to try to connect Eric Adams to the Epstein matter with no proof whatsoever, thinking that was clever. This guy really should be castigated in public and called out for what he is. And it is unfair to do anything else. And the fact that Mamdani would want him around is amazing to me. The other thing Mamdani I find fascinating is his going to Uganda. Yeah, he was born there, but you know what? Hey, it's the country that has the most restrictive laws against gays probably in the world. It is a crime to be gay. He's there. You think he's saying anything about that? You think the gay community in New York City thinks that's great? When I mentioned this today, someone accused me of pinkwashing. I said, that's a bunch of crap. I was the guy that brought the Teamsters Union into the gay rights battle to get that law passed in 1986. Do not accuse me of anything. I know from what I speak. Mamdani is a fraud. He's a fake. Bowman, who wants to be the school's chancellor, is a stone-cold anti-Semite and hater of police officers. And Brad Lander is a fraud through in and throughout. Those are the people that are going to be running New York. And unless people get off their tuchuses and get into that voting booth and tell Mamdani no.
So many questions I have to ask you about Uganda, Hank. Here he is I found the irony rich, too, not only as you brought up some of the issues or lack thereof for gay rights. Also, he is surrounded by armed guards, apparently heavily powered armed guards. Apparently has all these super wealthy people attending this wedding celebration. And yet he's saying he doesn't like the rich. He's saying he doesn't want police or security. He wants to, defund the police. But what, it's okay for him?
Well, look, he's like that other faker, AOC, who calls herself a blue-collar woman. That's nonsense. She may have waited tables for, 3 months? I know what it means to wait tables. I know what it means to be a dishwasher and a porter and to not have meal on the table and to have to work like a dog. She has no clue, but she sure went to the Met Gala. It's the same kind of thing as Mamdani. They're socialists who love being socialists but don't know what it really means to be without or to work for people that work for a living and to take and to pay a price for it. I did. I organized unions. I mean, I don't know what these two people are all about, or any of them. They have paid no price and borne no burden. And their supporters, frankly, are the most pampered generation in the history of the world. No question about it. And that's the danger, because they don't know what it means. But they talk a lot of rhetoric. And they are not Democrats. They are socialists. Make no mistake. The history of Democrats and socialists is, at best, one of warfare internally. When they're looking for a body to take over, and what they're trying to take over is the moribund Democratic Party. This is like a virus implanting itself on a live entity to suck all the life out of it. And that's what they're going to wind up doing unless we wake up in New York.
How come we are not seeing other good Democrats coming out and speaking out against? We've only heard, I think it's Josh Shapiro, I know, made a reference to it. I think Rahm Emanuel did. That's about it so far. There are very few that are critical of Mamdani. Why do you think that is? Are they scared about being primaried?
I think that's part of it. The other part is that Rahm Emanuel has courage of conviction, tough guy, highly qualified. It's had an extraordinary life. Josh Shapiro's home was firebombed by an anti-Semite because he's Jewish. Look, what we're going to see is the political industrial complex, I call it, in control, including the consultants. They don't care who's in power so long as they can make a buck. They have absolutely no conscience, absolutely no morals, and absolutely no ethics. They'll do whatever it takes. And then they want to be sure that gravy train continues. What they don't understand is that once Mamdani wins, the characters on the stage are going to change. It's not going to be the way it was. The people in City Hall, the lobbyists and the rest, they think they're going to continue doing what they're doing under a Mamdani administration. There'll be a whole new cast of characters. It'll be a generational shift, and the power will shift. And by the way, if I were some of the new immigrants coming to New York City who don't agree with Mamdani, I'd be very worried, because when power shifts, there is always a competition between groups for resources that becomes much more intense. Who is Mamdani going to take care of? Those who hate Israel, or those who are prepared to live with everybody?
You bring up a powerful point in terms of the budget and the purse strings and the allocation that a mayor has. Talk about how much of, authority and obviously choice a mayor has in terms of designating X amount of funds to certain charities that he cares about.
The mayor has a tremendous amount of power. I mean, the cultural institutions in New York City largely exist in many cases because of the city's capacity to help fund them. There are boards that are created that the mayor has appointments to on many of these institutions. Who is Mamdani going to appoint? Brad Lander? I mean, really, what are we going to look like? Who's going to make these decisions? Does he have any idea what it costs to build schools? We need schools. During the de Blasio years, that genius left us left the city with a capital budget that didn't have a dime in it. The result is we couldn't build any schools, and that's what Eric Adams was left with. The mayor's power is extraordinary. He runs, I guess, 100 agencies. That's amazing, right? He is the cheerleader and the manager of the greatest city in the United States that has presented the most opportunity for the most immigrants in the history of the world, probably. I mean, what are we going to have next? A guy who's going to say only certain people are welcome here, who threatens to lock up and to arrest a head of state? I mean, is he kidding us or what? Who is this guy? He's an imposter. He's a liar. He's a con man. And so are the people around him. And this idea that somehow they will work so hard to get to where they are is a bunch of junk. Take it from somebody who knows what it means to work and to put his life on the line for what he thought was important. They paid no price. born no burden, and they're a bunch of frauds.
Yeah, they are completely disconnected from reality. And like you just said, driven by the free. Also, you talk about the association. You brought up Jamal Bowman, the guy who famously pulled the alarm, of course, in Congress, Brad Lander. Mamdani has also been hanging out with the Mahmoud Khalil. He's the guy who was organizing the Columbia University protests. I mean, birds of a feather.
Well, birds of a feather, but they're not well intended, okay? And part of their argument is that they need to get rid of the old people in power. You know, this is a new thing, old people in power. What does that mean? They have to have some kind of new something. I mean, you know, I just don't know where they think how they're going to function, how they think they're going to do the things they're going to do. I tell you, when he becomes mayor, if he wins, I'm really excited to see what the bond insurers have to say about the city's finances. I'm really excited to see what the bond rating is going to be like and what the percentages we're going to have to pay for city bonds, you know, for the city to borrow what it needs to function.
Right.
It's going to be amazing. He will decimate the police department. He's already said that. That's going to be terrific. Who's going to want to be here if we don't have cops?
Right. And doesn't want them to cooperate with the feds. This is the kind of person who will, you know, do investigations on them. So it seems, you know, what I also think about too, also Hank Sheinkopf, is he's come out and he was espousing support for this guy, Anwar al-Awlaki. This guy was responsible for plotting bombings on commercial airliners, tied sort of the whole Osama bin Laden group. This is a guy who Obama took out with a drone because he was a very bad man. And yet there is social media posts with Mamdani praising this guy, saying, you know, trying to sort of espouse almost sympathy. It reminded me of some of the writings even of Mamdani's father. His father has written a lot of books. And in one of the books, it seems like he's sympathizing with suicide bombers. So it seems this to me is very concerning as someone who loves this country. And I know you, boy, do you, Hank.
I love this country. It's the most amazing place in the world in this city. A guy like me who had no shots in life, got the opportunities because of New York. And what Mamdani is going to do is he's going to make sure that he has a political mayoralty based upon his rhetoric, not one that provides the most for the most amount of people. He is creating a new kind of class warfare, which is unnecessary and does nothing for anybody. And whether he is successful or not, he is sounding the alarms, and people need to wake up across the country. This George Soros largely funded probably army of 40,000 people who don't live in New York that came here to make sure Mamdani could be elected. We'll be back. The question is, do New Yorkers want to live here, or do they want to move someplace else, and they want to find out that the country will be a different kind of country. It'll be livable beyond the Mason-Dixon line, south of the Mason-Dixon line, from Florida to Arizona, and California won't be included in it. I mean, that's the country we're going to have if this guy is elected, and people should wake up. And all these youth, young people, they think we need new people, we need new blood, and they're not going to get new blood. What they're going to get is taxed out of existence. He means what he says. I always listen to people when they say things. They mean what they say. And for those who think they're so smart, they should look at their history. And you, specifically coming out of your family coming from Europe, understands this very well. It always starts with the Jews, but it never ends with the Jews. That's the lesson here. And people should be paying attention to history.
Absolutely. Good people need to stand up together, no doubt. Do you think there's a chance, because there's been so much more education, Hank, now coming out about him? You know, a lot of people didn't sort of see him coming, if you will. It seemed like Cuomo certainly didn't, you know, during the primary. He was stunned when he lost to him. But now there's a lot more self-reflection. I wish people had done opposition research, by the way, and some of this might have come out beforehand. Do you think there's a chance that now that more details are coming out, as we're talking about, the defund the police, the open the jails, the grocery run stores, the comments after, you know, of al-Awlaki and the father suicide bombers, all these things, and obviously the globalized intifada, all of these things. Do you think that can change the dynamic of the race leading into November now that more education's coming out about him?
I think he can be beaten. I think it's about following the same tactics that he did in the primary, where Andrew Cuomo had an atrocious campaign that he should be ashamed of. It was just a bad campaign. You'd think that a guy who's won races would know how to do better, but they didn't. You can beat him, but you got to use the same tactics that he used with people who are over 40. And if you do that, you have a problem. You have a possibility of winning. But if you don't do that, Jews and people who believe in free enterprise really should start packing their bags. Florida will never look so good. And the other thing that's going to happen, if he's elected, there will be a wall put up at the Nassau County border because what he's selling, the suburbs don't want. The other thing that's good news if you're a Republican is Mamdani will make sure that more Republicans are elected in New York State by his presence than at any time in recent history and in the region. So if you're a Republican, it could be a good thing.
Well, it seems like people are already running against the Mamdani Democratic Party. They're already sort of calling it that. On the other hand, you don't want anybody's victory to be at the expense of New York going down the tubes with this guy.
Well, the argument will be, well, it really won't go down the tubes. It'll just be a fairer place. Okay, maybe that's true. But New York City has absorbed more immigrants and turned them into more productive people through its institutions, its kindness, and its charity.
Yep.
And maybe any other place in the United States, certainly. We are an amazing place. And if you chase the people who pay the price, pay the freight away, who's going to make it possible for those same miracles to happen? If you tax businesses, small businesses, and other businesses out of existence, or you make it impossible for people to be here, who's going to make sure the coffee guy in the corner, okay, or the delivery man who works in a restaurant down the block can still make a buck? It all sounds good, but what he's talking about will be the end of those kinds of jobs potentially in New York, and people are not going to stay here. Why stay here when you can go to the Dallas-Fort Worth corridor, make a decent living, do work, have a home, and not have to worry about being assaulted? Or go to Florida, or go to other edge cities that are now developing because the city of New York is just too expensive. He will not cure affordability. He will exacerbate it. But what he will do is build a political force that will be strong, and it will be part of the AOC, do nothing. I mean, her record as a congresswoman in constituent affairs in her district is atrocious. So is his. What did he ever do for the people he served in that district?
Yeah, no question. There are so many questions. And it's a scary thing, Hank? In addition to that, and you hit on it, he's not going to make us safer by defunding the police, allowing even, violent protests, it seems, the rhetoric, the divisiveness, it is a cauldron for disaster on so many levels, that you're right. It so disincentivizes people to stay in the city. And it does not make us safe. It doesn't make us more secure. It doesn't want to make people hire people. The grocery run, the government run grocery stores. There are so many layers to this that are troubling. It's astounding to me that this guy is running for office in America as opposed to some other country.
Just tell the Dominican grocers that they're out of business because that's what's going to happen. Just tell them that. Those are the people going to be impacted. You don't have to think about the rich. He keeps talking about the rich. The rich pay the city taxes. That's what happens.
Right. They're the ones who hire people. They're the ones who hire people.
It is not going to work out well. It sounds great. And this pampered generation of people who think that somehow the boomers are screwing them are going to get a very different message. Because if we're not here and we're not paying the freight, they're not going to be able to. Now, they can have their $9 lattes and their $200 dinners and complain about the rest of us and live off daddy's money. But Mamdani is not going to make their lives any better. What he will do is make them feel better, because they'll have one of their own, they'll say, and our generational break who's there who understands this. But, put a callus on your hand, kids, and go out to work and see what happens.
I agree. And give back to society and make the place better. Don't bring it down. Boy, oh boy, let's pray for New York. Let's pray for America. What an important message that you have, Hank. And thank you all for, just standing up and your courage and your honesty and your love of this country and your love of New York City. And everybody be sure to subscribe and share to this very powerful podcast. The great Hank Sheinkopf. Thank you so much for joining me, Hank.
I'm very grateful. Thank you for having me on.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.